What is critical thinking, and how can you show it?
There is one key difference between average student work and exceptional work, and that difference is critical thinking. In order to get a first or a distinction, most marking criteria will expect a strong degree of criticality. Yet in my job as a skills lecturer, I have seen students struggle time and time again with the issue of critical thinking. One of the main problems is that critical thinking is easy to define, yet hard to actually do. With AI able to generate high-quality text instantly, cultivating key cognitive skills like critical thinking will be essential for graduates. In this video, we will consider what critical thinking really means and how to show your critical thinking in your assignments. What is critical thinking? At its heart, critical thinking is a simple idea. Your ideas must be justified with good reasons. As Ennis put it, critical thinking means reasonable, reflective thinking that is focused on deciding what to believe or do. This means that your beliefs should be grounded in good reasons, and you should consider the strengths and weaknesses of those beliefs and reasons to assess their value. Problem solved. But not really. There is an important difference between knowing what critical thinking is and being a critical thinker. Anyone could put the question, "What is critical thinking?" into an AI chatbot and be given that definition. That doesn't mean that they can think critically. In academic work, criticality is an essential skill. To unlock the best grades, you need to be able to think critically, not just know what it means. This requires practice and dedication, like any other skill. How can you be critical? Being critical is fundamentally about asking good questions. Let's take an uncontroversial example from my own country. In 2017, the UK voted to leave the European Union. It was great. Everyone had a polite, reasoned discussion and came to a measured, fair conclusion. Some people didn't get the result they wanted, but they took it well, and those who were victorious were gracious and considerate, recognising that there were many legitimate opinions in this discussion. Britain left the EU quickly and easily, and all of the promises made by leavers were fulfilled. Now, you don't need a PhD in critical thinking to know that what I just said was not true. In fact, every one of those sentences was incorrect. Simply by checking what I said against other, more reliable sources, you can easily see that I was talking nonsense. To get the best grades at university, you will unfortunately be expected to do more than that. You'll need to consider questions of the value, use, and truthfulness of the source, and compare it to other sources you have read. Let's give an example, staying with Brexit because I guess it was just such a great idea. Let's consider probably the most famous bus advert in British history. For those of you fortunate enough to not remember this, a big red bus drove around the UK with an eye-catching statistic emblazoned on the side. "We send the EU £350 million a week. Let's fund the NHS instead." Let's examine this idea critically. Using basic reading skills, we can understand the claim. £350 million is a huge amount of money. We are giving it to a foreign organisation. If we leave that organisation, we will have much more money. Let's leave it as quickly as possible, guys. This argument won the Brexit debate. Such an argument wouldn't get a good grade at university, however. What's wrong with it? Well, firstly, who wrote it? Were the winners interested in providing a balanced opinion, considering both the benefits and drawbacks of EU membership? I'll leave that one to you. We should consider the reliability of the source. In general, political campaign slogans should be questioned and not taken at face value, no matter what your political views. In this example, the creators of the slogan had every incentive to stretch the truth, and they faced very few consequences. On the other hand, academic books and papers typically undergo a rigorous, frustrating peer review process that ensures that the text is reliable and its claims are defensible. Occasionally, there is fraud, but in general, academic work is reliable, certainly more so than a slogan on the side of a bus. Secondly, the claim might not be correct. We might be sending less money than claimed. This is an example of an evaluation. How true is the claim? What is the evidence for it? Next, does it provide a complete picture? What do we get in return for our money? Maybe we get back more than we pay in terms of economic benefits. This is another example of evaluation. How complete is a claim? Is all relevant information included? What is being left out? In addition, and this is mainly relevant for the social sciences, consider whose perspectives are included and whose are ignored. Loaded terms like we and our NHS are given. EU residents and those who would lose out from Brexit are not included in this claim. In this case, EU nationals in the UK are likely to be substantially affected by Brexit, but are not mentioned. Another useful criticism is the real-world implications of theories and ideas. Sure, by leaving the EU, we would save a lot of money, but what practical difficulties are there that aren't mentioned? Perhaps we will face longer queues at airports, or longer traffic jams near ports, for example. What isn't included in a text is often as important as what is. Finally, the claim that the UK sends £350 million a week is given entirely out of context. When assessing a claim, always consider it in relation to other sources and ideas you have read about this topic. Draw connections between ideas and show how they are linked. This doesn't have to be negative. Showing how one idea leads to another, or how one text's findings support another is an example of criticality in academic work. So, when reading a source or evaluating an idea, it's a good idea to consider the following key points. Firstly, who is the author? What's the main idea? Does it consider counter-arguments and perspectives? What are the practical implications of this idea? How does it relate to other texts you have read? Having considered all of these questions, it is clear that there are some issues with the claim given. Perhaps the UK should think carefully before deciding on major policies with long-term implications. As a student, when reading texts and writing about them, consider these questions in order to make a reasoned judgment about the value, usefulness, and truthfulness of the text. That is critical thinking, and it is a skill highly sought after by employers. As AI takes over more of the entry-level job market, being able to demonstrate a critical mind will be an essential skill for students and graduates.